When you get back from outer space, how long does it take for your legs and your muscles just to get back used to the gravity?
But it's a good question. In case y'all didn't hear it, how long, once we come back from space, does it take before our legs, and I think really probably just our whole bodies, get used to gravity? It differs, first of all, by person, and it also differs depending on how long you were in space. All three of my missions were what we call short duration missions, only a couple weeks. And typically, we readjust pretty well once we get back. Some people, when they get to space, TK mentioned, he'd heard the stories about, he's worried about maybe would he feel like throwing up. There's something called SAS, or space adaptation sickness, that everyone goes through. They just do it at different levels. I happen to be one that never felt sick when I got to space, which I was fortunate. I did struggle when I came back because of the vestibular system. So again, it depends on the person, and it depends on the duration. And believe it or not, it depends on the number of space flights you have. The way I felt on my first space flight versus the way I felt on my second or my third was a lot different. And I would love to tell the story of my first space flight. When we come back and we land at Kennedy Space Center, we get to see our families, and we have a meal, and they let us go down and stay in a condo that first night after we've landed. There's no more quarantine when we come back from space, only before we go. And so we came back. I didn't feel like doing much that night. Went to bed. Woke up the next morning. I was going to see my mom and dad for the first time. I was going to have breakfast with them since I had gone into quarantine. And my wife drove me there. We can't drive for 3 days once we get back. And the whole time we sat at breakfast, I had to hold on to the table because the room was just spinning around as fast as I could. I didn't feel bad. I felt great. It's just that I couldn't sit up without holding on. And so I had breakfast, got back to the condo, and just feeling really proud of myself for being able to go have breakfast with my folks. And I kind of walked over to the sliding glass door overlooking the beach, and there was my commander running down the beach. Okay? But it was his fourth space flight, and I did find that the more times you flew, the better you got. Now, all three of my missions, we've also brought home someone, a crew that had lived up there for 6 months. And it's amazing to see what that kind of trip will do to the human body. But we're getting better at exercise. You saw Sonny talk about, we have 2 treadmills up there. We have a weightlifting device called RED, Resistance Exercise Device, and that cycle ergometer. We are required to exercise 2 hours a day, every day, while we're on orbit. And we have found that between our fluid loading protocols and our exercise protocols, that those that are coming back from space are really doing quite well. And the rehab's about 45 days, and after 45 days, we're seeing them back to the levels they were when they went to space.
That's 45 days post-flight after exercising 2 hours a day, every day, for 4 months. How many of us do that? Once again,